Welcome to this edition of the Native News Update. I'm your host for today's program, Paul DeMain. Many of the stories and information we give here can be found also at our website at indiancountrynews.com. Here's the news from the day from the Associated Press and other Native American news sources. A federal judge has reversed himself and ordered a new trial for a man convicted in killing on the Spokane Reservation. The new trial for 32-year-old Norman Ford was ordered by U.S. District Court Judge Edward Shea. He set trial for May 24th. Ford was convicted on February 4th, 2008 of first-degree murder and burglary in the shooting of 20-year-old Gary Flett Jr. Ford's lawyers complained that Shea changed the jury instructions on premeditation after deliberations began. Ford told the jury he went to Flett's home only to confront him about rumors that Flett was having sex with Ford's girlfriend. He said the shooting was actually done by 24-year-old Joey Jake Moses, who pled guilty to first-degree murder to avoid a possible life prison term. A federal appeals court upheld the theft conviction of a former Oglala Sioux tribal official suing the state of South Dakota because the crime kept her from voting in last year's November election. Former tribal vice president Elaine Janice was found guilty in 2007 of theft from a tribal organization. Two other tribal officials who are also from the Pine Ridge pled guilty earlier. Janice appealed her conviction, but the 8th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals affirmed it. She and the other woman charged with theft, Kim Koloff, filed a lawsuit against the state during February, saying they were improperly removed from the voting rolls. The American Civil Liberties Union is backing the case and says state law takes away voting rights from people sentenced to prison, but that both women in this case were given probation instead. Opponents of a tribal casino plan for Allegheny County, Michigan, are reviewing their legal options after a U.S. Supreme Court decision limiting the federal government's authority to take tribal land into trust. The U.S. Department of Interior placed 137 acres into trust for the Gun Lake Band of Potawatomi on January 30th. The tribe plans to build a $200 million casino complex about 20 miles south of Grand Rapids, Michigan. The Supreme Court ruled last week that the federal government must have recognized tribes by 1934 in order to take their lands in trust. The Gun Lake Band was recognized in 1998. 23 is enough spokesman Rusty Merchant tells the Grand Rapids Press that he wonders whether the ruling could lead to a trust reversal. About 24 protesters gathered at the Nebraska state capitol to protest beer sales to American Indians in the northwest Nebraska village of White Clay. Activist Frank Lemire said during the gathering on March 2nd that allowing beer to be sold to members of the nearby Pine Ridge Reservation in southwest South Dakota is unconscionable. There are 4 beer stores in town, which is within walking distance of the reservation. They sell about 11,000 cans of beer daily, mostly to residents of the reservation where alcohol is prohibited. The protest was organized by Nebraskans for Peace. The gathering and Indian prayer ceremony at the Capitol preceded a screening of a recently released documentary, The Battle for White Clay. The Navajo Nation Council recently voted 71-8 to approve right-of-way easements for a proposed coal-fired power plant on the reservation, marking the tribe's last step in what has been a long process to move the controversial project forward. The tribe will receive $3.5 million in fees in exchange for granting rights away for transmission, data, electrical and water lines, water wells, and road access for the $3 billion Desert Rock Energy Project in northwestern New Mexico. The right-of-way measure was just one of a handful of things the tribe had to sign off on before construction could begin. The lease, tax agreements, and water rights already have been approved. Federal officials still have to approve a massive environmental impact statement for Desert Rock, and the developers are waiting for an air permit, which is under appeal with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Navajo Nation President Joe Shirley Jr. says the vote helps clear the way for upward of 500 permanent jobs at union wages on a reservation with an unemployment rate hovering around 50%. Congressman Denny Rayburg has joined the House Native American Caucus. The Montana Republican says the caucus seeks to educate Congress on issues affecting Native Americans in Montana and throughout the nation. The Native American Caucus regularly conducts briefings and prepares background information on legislation that may have an impact on tribes around the country. It also provides a forum for members to exchange ideas and research. Rayburg noted he represents 7 reservations and 8 tribes. He said recently that Congress needs to recognize that tribal nations face many unique challenges, and what works in Washington doesn't always work in Indian country. Rayburg is a member of the House Appropriations Committee. If you're headed out on the powwow circuit this weekend, we got a couple of them. There's the 14th annual Rekindling Your Traditions Midwinter Powwow. That's being held at the Friendship Center Gym in Fort Erie, Ontario, Canada. There's the American Indian Festival Powwow at the Carlisle Expo Center in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. That's on March 7th. Also on March 7th is the the 3rd Annual Student Association Powwow. That's being held at the TSTC Gym in Waco, Texas. There's the Twin Eagles Rebirth Powwow, and that's being held on the 7th and 8th on Highway 171 in Mansfield, Louisiana. We also have the Lawrence High School Native American Club Spring Powwow coming up on the 7th. That's going to be at the Lawrence High School in Lawrence, Kansas. We also have the 9th Annual Winter Social Powwow. That's on March 7th as well at Mount Carmel Society in Enfield, Connecticut. We have the 22nd Trails Powwow, March 7th and 8th at the Saucaugan Bingo Hall in Mole Lake, Wisconsin. And finally, we have the 39th Annual California State Powwow at the California State University, Long Beach, at Long Beach, California. Those are the powwows that we've been notified about. There's probably more out there. Make sure you get your powwow calls in here. And that's it for today's News from Indian Country update on this edition of the Native News Update. We want to thank our underwriters for helping us with this broadcast. Join with us again soon. Thank you.